I just want to say that, like, I'm totally fine if you want to hard pivot back into something else, but I want to make it sort of
no, I want to go right here.
Like, in the mining space, like rare earth metals and all of those things, like all of them are like more or less responsibly mined, except for cobalt. And so cobalt is probably the most problematic one because the vast majority of it is found in the Republic of Congo, DRC, the Republic of Congo. And so there's a lot of like child labor and like issues that sort of go along with that. And so the idea of sort of creating a recycling economy in the US makes a ton of sense because you only have to get it out of the ground once. And then you sort of create kind of that opportunity. But there's a lot of steps in the value chain in like building up a battery that are challenging. And a vast majority of it is over in China. And in your role, you're finding your way back east a lot, right? Like,
that's right.
And,
yes.
Like, how is that? Like, I don't know what my question is, but like, I've not ever been to sort of the Far East. I've had the opportunity to travel lots of different sort of kind of parts of the world, but like, I'd just love to like get your perspective from having grown up there and like those distant pre-13 memories to like subsequent visits, and like what are some of the things that you like enjoy or take away from, or just like what is the thing like you look forward to, like what's the best part about like being?
Yeah, I love to travel. I love the fact that you guys love to travel. Actually, there's a Chinese proverb that says it's great to read 10,000 books, but it's even better to travel 10,000 miles.
Wow.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I raised my hand to work new markets, because I was in the ventures team working on US, UK deals. When the new markets job came up, I raised both hands and just jumped with both feet in.
Cannonballed.
So, yes, definitely. But is there any other way, Brad?
To belly flop?
That is the only way. Well, you could. It just hurts a lot more. So I just choose to cannonball.
Yes.
I get a bigger splash.
Belly flop makes it sound like a fail, and that's not the case. This is a cannonball.
I mean, I'm also too tiny of a human. If I belly flop, it doesn't get much splash. I only get a good splash out of a good cannonball.
So last year I went to Singapore. We always anchor our trip around a conference. So that was Clean Tech Singapore. But truly to get to know the ecosystem, you got to meet the people. So we had 19 meetings in 4 days with local Singaporean venture capital firms.
Stop it. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah. My meetings were from early morning, late to the evening.
Wow.
And if people like you, they will share deal flow with you. And in Asian cultures, the best deal flow come from people you know.
Wait, you're saying human relationships should be a priority?
I know, surprised, right?
So strange. And they should be authentic and not inauthentic. Wow, so weird.
Yeah, you were totally spot on. Nothing replaces the face-to-face connection that we build.
I mean, we can try all day. And I'm not the antithesis of like modernized technologies like metaverse. I worked in that space for a number of years. I think it has a time and place, but I think sometimes we're putting round pegs in square holes.
That's right. You can have efficiency, but you're sacrificing something. And there's time and place for that.
Yeah.
For this podcast, I truly enjoyed looking Scott into your eyes, and you, Brad, sitting next to you. It's incredible that we get to have this conversation.
Yeah.
It makes me forget about the mic in front of me because we're building this connection, doesn't it?
Well, that's really wonderful to hear because, Scott, what do you always say? That we want the mic to do what?
To disappear.
There you go.
Entire goal.
There you go.
We know mission accomplished. Every episode, we sort of like wait for the moment. It's like where it's like kind of becomes clear. You've called it out explicitly, which is great. I don't think that's ever happened before.
First time.
But it's,
boom.
It's always,
boom. Yeah. Leave it to Grace.
So last year we did that wonderful Singaporean trip. On the front end, Met VC conference, and then a ton of deal flow. We're going to recreate that in Thailand this year. So we're going May. It's Future Mobility Asia, Future Energy Asia. I'm lining up meetings with Thai investors now to prepare for my May trip. And I do this because, one, I grew up in China, so Asia is near dear to my heart. And two, Brad, energy transition is happening everywhere. Yeah. Electrification is happening everywhere. We have to go where the growth is, and that includes Asia.
Oh, yeah. That's really cool that you said that too, because it's a global reality. And I think, if I think about the roaring 20s of the 1920s, and I think about the roaring 20s of the 2020s, about like this kind of like idealism around how we start to think differently about the roaring 20s of the 2020s and like what that means for us. And I think part of that is sometimes in like a really abysmal, sad way, the pandemic, which had some beautiful moments, but a lot of tragedy. But also when it comes to energy, right? I think the roaring 20s might be this kind of like perspectivism of an interconnected global society in a shared experience that we haven't had otherwise. Like Scott said it really well one time. He said, there's very few moments in human history where around the globe, we all will share the same experience. And I was like, whoa, that's really good.
That's so true. And technology makes it happen.
Yeah.
I'm working on Asian deals sitting from Houston. My manager's in London, but we can work because of technology.
Yeah. Because if that wasn't there, it wouldn't be possible.
That's right.
I mean, the pandemic, aside from Teams and Slack and Zoom, would not have been possible. We would not.
If it had happened 10 years earlier.
We would have, who knows what would have happened, but like there's no way we could have functioned.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, those were those subtle heroes of the journey.
Brad and I met on a Zoom call.
We did.
How sweet. Tell me about that.
That was our first connection.
The Brad and Scott meet cute of the 2020s.
Yeah. I actually want to hear Scott's recount.
Which app was it? Zoom?
Yeah, we met on Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swiped right. Do you swipe right? By the way, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't know how you swipe.
So, yeah.
Okay,
that's the
because I was
that's the right
pre-dating
thing,
apps.
yeah.
I just totally made that up.
Yeah, we swiped right, and then
I'm glad I got that. I would hate to say I swiped left, and I thought that was the correct way. Like right just makes more sense in my brain.
Right is right.
Okay, cool.
Right is always right.
Yeah.
Were you pre-dating apps or were you post-dating apps?
I met my husband face to face actually at a Houston car club.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm a face-to-face person. Okay. But I have used dating app in college.
That's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, see, Sky and I met 12, 13 years ago now, and we've been married over 11 years. So 2010, dating apps weren't, if they were a thing, I didn't know about them. I learned about them later on. I'm always fascinated by them. I'm like,
it wasn't a dating app. It was more like, do you remember hotornot.com? You literally put a picture on there. You rate people. I'm sorry, that's not even a dating app. Yeah. But I didn't meet people on there.
Okay, that's even better. Hotornot.com.
I do remember.
That is so awesome. Yeah, I did not know hotornot.com. I definitely probably would have gotten the knot a lot, but it's fine.
So this is how we use that. That we didn't call it app, that website. So the girls in my room, we'll put our pictures on there, try to get a score. If it's 9 or above, we'll put it on Facebook. Then it becomes our Facebook picture.
That's hilarious.
Oh,
so we used the scoring system.
That's amazing.
Put it through the wash cycle on this website before sort of posting.
That's right. You got to make sure your Facebook picture is the best one.
Yeah, I mean,
that's strategy.
Strategy right there.
Gosh, I was thinking about this other day with like technology and social media. I'm not very active on social media, to say the least. I find it very stressful. And I was thinking about how, like, what if we just had a medium where we just talked about like really honest factors of life instead of always like our best moments? What if it was just like the reality of every moment? Like, what would that do differently for society? Because there's obviously been a lot of research that's comes out now and a lot of data that's come out. And, we've learned that like people start to compare themselves to what they see, and they see people only in their best light and their happiest moment. And they miss the argument that you had with your spouse 20 minutes before. They miss the moments with your children where maybe you weren't as awesome as you would have liked to have been, or with your coworker. And it's like, what if we just had like more authenticity?
There's a whole big wave around it. There's women that sort of like, like will post a picture, but then they'll post like the behind the scenes sort of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Cooking, shows that'll show like the mess and the disaster after.
Oh, the behind the scenes movement. Maybe that's what it needs to be.
Yeah.
There's like this kind of whole like, I love that. It's like, show us behind the scenes, like, and let me show you behind the scenes.
There's been like a real deliberate effort to sort of like
just honesty,
debunk some of that, so that people kind of like recognize and understand that it's like there's an inauthenticity.
No, I mean, it's so true. Like, and I think it's okay to be like honest about our imperfections, and that life isn't always like this super picture perfect reality. And that's what makes it picture perfect, is that it doesn't always appear that way. I think it really affects our mental health a lot.
Absolutely. I follow a few influencers that do behind the scenes. It makes me like them better.
Yeah.
Sky and I are cleaning, like kind of re-cleaning the house right now. Talk about behind the scenes. Our house is pretty much always like flawless. And right now it is like a bomb went off in the best way of like, Sky this morning was like, I think I created a bigger mess. I said, no, this is just like a metaphorical lens into the creative process. Because we have
breaking it all down.
We have clothes everywhere. We have stuff everywhere. And one of the things we did was go through some of our photos that we have in our memory box. And like I said, we've been married over 11 years. And I had my memory box, and then Sky had our memory box. So clearly, I was being a little selfish with my memory box. So we went through, quote unquote, my memory box, and we started getting rid of some photos that just like my mom had duplicates of, or like we didn't need anymore. They just weren't super relevant. I just had them to have them. And as I was going through those moments, I kind of like saw like my life in photos, and I saw my childhood, and I saw myself, in junior high school and in high school and at university and as a young professional. And
Brad with hair.
I saw a lot of Brad with hair. Yeah. Brad.
And when did you play baseball?
When did I play baseball? Yeah. In high school?
In high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I attempted to play in college. I was okay. I wasn't great. I got to do a little bit of stuff, but it wasn't a sustainable path. It's actually a moment where my dad was like, he's a really kind human, and he doesn't often like kind of overassert himself. And he was like, I think it might be time to hang up the cleats. I was at a university tryout, or at a junior college tryout, and actually got a chance to be on the team. But he was like, might be time to hang up the cleats and focus on your education. You're a good athlete, but you're really smart. And I think it'd be better to focus on your education and your intelligence and lean that direction and put all your effort into that instead of trying to do both, because, you're good, but you're not great. And I'm like, it's true. I mean, it's very true. Like, I'm good, I'm not great. And so I was like, love that. At the moment, it was a little hard to hear, but you appreciated it. So, Britt, tying all that together, it was funny because I kind of reflected, and I remember key moments when I was younger that I wasn't fond of. But when I looked back and saw reality in photos, it made me realize how beautiful life is and how fortunate I am to have had the journey that I've had and that I have, and that hopefully I'll continue to have. And I just was like, whoa, why has my brain told me things that maybe aren't actually true, but that I believe to be true all these years? And when I saw life in photos, it just totally changed my perspective.
And tying it together, we were talking about living in the moment, right? How do you know right now isn't the best time of your life? You should love today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I love that. There's a
live every day like you deliberately came back to it.
Wow. Stoicism.
Oh, I love that. That gave me chills, that quote.
That must be a Chinese proverb.
It's not, actually.
It's a Scott proverb.
It's from a Rachel McAdams movie that I'm a big fan of.
Which movie?
It's called About Time.
Yeah, that's a great film.
Great movie.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
About the men and their family can go back in time.
Yeah, I remember.
The lesson learned is that you live each day like you went back to it deliberately.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
It reminds me is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It reminds me of Stoicism a bit too, kind of blending those two perspectives. And I don't remember which Stoic philosopher it was, but they were talking about how in life we spend 99% of our time focusing on the tragedy that might happen 1% of the time. And I was like, wow, that's so incredibly powerful. Not that everyone experiences that, but I definitely, if I'm being really honest, I have moments like that where like I'm so over focused on, kind of to your point, the anxiety of the future, rather than like the beauty of the moment and being present in the present. There's so much power in presence.
I'm the opposite, actually. I anticipate the fun stuff in the future, but I actually realize I need to be more present right now.
Yeah.
Because if you even just think about it, like the fun stuff in the future, it removes you from the present. Anything that removes you from the present is robbing you of the moment right here. So on other spectrum, worrying about the future, thinking too much about the future, it's still better to be right here.
Like no matter what our thoughts are about the future, focusing on the future as opposed to focusing on the present and not so much on the past.
That's
is
right.
maybe not the best place to be. The past I don't struggle with. I've always hated the term like glory days or like back in my day. I'm like, I don't know why I've had such a visceral reaction to it, but I always have. I'm like, yo, like enjoy this moment. Like this is where you are.
That's right.
Like your glory days, things don't have to be in the past. You're in the present. But the future, I spend a lot of time on the future. And I don't know why my brain does tend to go more. I'm a very optimistic human, but my brain will go to like very like dark moments of like things that I feel like could happen and could go wrong. I think that's because when I graduated from university, my career experimentation phase was brutal. And I think that really stuck with me. It took a long time for me to kind of work through that from a psychological perspective, and a lot of meditation, a lot of prayer, a lot of time with God, Christian faith. And so spent a lot of time kind of just in tune with that reality and just meditating and praying, trying to work through that. But a lot of it came from just like, I mean, there were some tough moments.
But everything you went through made you who you are, right?
Yeah.
You're this beautiful human being because the struggles you went through.
I 100% agree. And I would not be in this moment that I'm in if it wasn't for those key moments. And I truly believe like it was kind of God's way of protecting me, even though in the moment it just sucked and it was so hard. I never doubted it was like the right thing. And that's what's weird about it. I always knew it's what needed to happen. Every time something crazy would occur, I mean, I got fired, I think 3 different times, like in my early career, or laid off, as they say, but basically like fired more or less. And like, if that wouldn't have happened, I would not be where I am right now. Every moment kind of led me to the next one, which is cool.
And he wouldn't put you through the task if he didn't think you can handle it.
Yeah, for sure. And it was super necessary. And I'm grateful for it, for sure. It was like, I mean, I've never doubted it was the right thing, but the pain's still there, right? Like the pain doesn't always go away, but you know it's the right thing and you know it should happen. And it's like this kind of vulnerability and this kind of conversation that like, I feel like we should have more of in society. We should be okay talking about the things that didn't always go perfect. I mean, I remember when we were starting when I was working with my buddy that founded the agency, I was really fortunate to kind of build a bit of a brand in the universe. And having grown up in a small town, I was like, a relatively small town, you know, it was very different for me. I was speaking at South by Southwest and I was invited to speak around the country on all these different topics, be on radio, TV, and talk about innovation and creativity and design. And I'm like, I mean, like I didn't even know this reality existed, let alone like to be a part of this part of society. And, you know, then like the ego comes because it's protecting you because you feel really out of your element. You don't feel like you belong there. And like, I remember people would look at me and they'd be like, wow, like, you know, look at how much you've done. And I'm like, you didn't see me couch surfing and overstayed my welcome at like 30 friends' houses that like wanted me to leave because I'd been there for like a month. Like you missed all of that. Like we should talk more about that stuff. We should be more honest about not everything that's right, but like the journey to get there and that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's like Sky and I's house right now. It's going through the creative process and it's a little messy, but sometimes you got to lean into the messy and be comfortable in it.
You know, my theory about pain, I think pain gives us a lot of compassion. I think in my younger days, I'm not the same kind, nice person I am. I got nicer later on in my life. It's because the pain I went through. Yeah. It made me relate better to people and have a lot more compassion for the pain they are going through. Just recently, I went to a mentor's wife and then confided in her on some personal problems. She's older, much, much wiser. And then she gave me some really solid advice. And I told her, Jill, what you did for me, I'm going to pass it on one day. Oh. And so the stories that you went through, the struggle you went through, you should share them because it's going to help other people.
Wow. See, and I'm just getting to a point at 39 years of age where I'm starting to get comfortable sharing them. And I tried to brush them under the rug for so long. Here's what's interesting. One of the coolest parts about it, when I graduated from university, 2007, like, what was acceptable in society was to have a career with the same company or with a few companies over the life of your career journey, right? In 2023, it's almost like down upon if you've been with the same organization for an extended period of time. I was talking to Sky about this other day because she's all about like moving and how movement from one organization to another is what accelerates your growth. But in my mind, I've realized I still have this orthodoxy where even though I know it's not true, there's this strong, deep-seated orthodoxy that's like, I should be ashamed of the fact that I had all these experiences during my career experimentation phase. I mean, I stacked beer at an Anheuser-Busch distributor. I was a barista at a coffee shop. Like I worked for a recruiting company for all of 1 month. I mean, it was like just crazy experiences. And like, instead of seeing it as like this beautiful journey, I think because I was on the cusp of that transition, but I was in the earlier part of that transition. And I don't think I've developed the appreciation amongst myself yet for that like diversity of experiences. And like, I know I need to, but because of like how I was brought up, I'm like, oh no, you're supposed to have like, you know, work for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 companies like your entire time.
That's
which
our
is
story,
so
isn't it?
crazy.
It's certainly it's kind of funny because the sort of I call it the psychological contract that an organization has with a person, and it's sort of like this employee versus employer relationship versus an organization and a person kind of relationship. And no doubt 2023 is shifting that. The comment I was going to make ties to something that Grace said really early on is around parenting is you look in the rearview mirror with rose-colored glasses in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, your memories, the glory days are because you deliberately kind of forget about or bury like the bad stuff, unless you like deliberately like spend time to go and unpack it. So you sort of forget all of that. It's like my kids love that we went to Disney World because they remember all of the good experiences, but like, going to Disney World is a grind, man. Like, nobody sleeps. Everybody's like, a total disaster. And it's like, wait a minute, you guys all want to go back and do it. Oh, it was so fun. It was amazing. It was like, you hated like most of it. It's like,
it was the best ever. Take me back to Disney World right now, Dad. And it's like, do you remember how much you complained? Because I do.
So all I said, looking backwards, it's kind of can be a temptation to forget about the scar tissue and kind of the battle to kind of get where you're at. But at the same time, to maintain the optimism that there you have every bit of control in shaping who you want to be, and right now is the best time to do it. And like for people that have done that have moved and like had different experiences and kind of moved along, like they appreciate that. But there's like until someone has left a company or gone and done something different, like they don't see sort of the fact that there's a life after a particular experience.
Well, and like the scar tissue,
identity.
The scar tissue is so important. I mean, like, I don't think any of us would be where we are. You mentioned you're a lot kinder human from your perspective today than you felt like you were previously, and the scar tissue allowed for that. I mean, Scott, like, you've had an incredibly beautiful, wild journey, and the scar tissue has, you said, reshaped your entire humanity. I think I'm on that path where I'm starting to appreciate the scar tissue more, but the spirit of just honesty, like, I'm still on that path. I'm not there yet. And I think it's good that I'm finally recognizing from the lens of photos over this past week how like, oh, life's pretty freaking beautiful. Like, it's just all about your perspective and your point of view.
You don't always have to control the lens through which other people see it.
And I think you said something so important. Sky's taught me this throughout our life together, because I've always had like the blind faith, life is serendipity kind of mindset, cannonball in, and what happens, which is not always, maybe the best, but I don't know. I've seen this, like this God being, whatever your faith or philosophical view is, like kind of guide even in like that type of approach. But I've also found planning, this beautiful thing called planning, can be highly effective, and you avoid a lot of haste, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And as much as I love the chaotic ambiguity of life, there's something nice about clarity. It can be really powerful, and planning does produce clarity. I mean, like Sky and I were going on our journey to be debt free, which we've been for a few years now. We had to plan to do that. That didn't just happen serendipitously. I'm not a trust fund baby who just like could all of a sudden be debt free. Like, it was a journey and an intentional commitment, small steps leading to giant leaps, and still on that journey. Like,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're about year 3 in, and now we're going for financial independence. We're about 9 years from that, which we're super excited
and then
about.
Travel.
Yeah, which we do now. We probably should do a little less of. We could probably get there in 5 years if we would be a little more.
It's hard to record podcast episodes when Brad's gone.
Yeah, it is. And we're also really fortunate that we're in a position where we can get to financial independence. And I think there's a lot of gratitude that comes with that. We recognize not everyone has those same opportunities. I mean, when I first started out in my career, that never would have been possible. It's been a lot of serendipitous moments that have led to that, which is cool. But I think from all that perspective, what I find interesting about this conversation and what you were sharing a moment ago, Scott, you as well, is like kind of like being joyful about the fact that the imperfections of life are really how we are where we are. And if it wasn't for those, like you said earlier, we wouldn't be here. And so it's like you can't have one without the other almost. And again, going back to Stoicism, the obstacle is the way. And without the obstacles, you don't get to a moment where you're getting to co-host a podcast with one of your dearest friends and have lovely humans like Grace on. Like that doesn't happen. It's not possible.
Your friendship is so cute. Oh,
Well, it's probably a good trick. Grace is probably like wondering, like, how long does
my
this
watch
go
is
for?
broken.
Because it's
It
5
cannot-
o'clock.
I know my watch is showing 5:01. That's
Yeah.
not possible.
It is. Yeah, we've this has been amazing. I mean, we sort of warned you, like sometimes this can be like untethered.
We weren't even
and-
drinking. I mean.
Yeah, that's good.
It's been a lovely conversation. I mean, Grace, thank you for coming and spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun.
So we like to end every episode with a question.
We do.
And we always,
And we don't ever warn the guest before.
Yeah. And we don't even know we have no idea what the
And
question
it's not a question for the guest. We get to come up with it collectively, but
Yeah.
every episode has a question to the audience to sort of consider based on the conversation.
Yeah. So as we're rifting, what's the question? I'd love to leave the audience with
Yeah. Sort of
the infinite question.
Brad's way better at this than I am. I mean, I feel like we talked about being present in the past because that's such an important feature, but it's sort of like what are, because one of the questions we had was, what are the sounds you're not hearing?
Yeah, that
And-
was a good one.
And
That was a
so
really
that
good
was
one.
great. So it's like a twist on like stop and smell the roses kind of thing, you know? So like being more deliberate, like paying attention, like what are some of the things that you could be doing to sort of like draw you back to the present? And so it's kind of like, I don't know, like what's keeping you from living your best life, you know? Like what's in the way?
Ooh, that's
Wow.
good.
What's a barrier?
Yeah,
Like
I like that.
identify a barrier. Like if the obstacle is the way, you gotta know what
Ooh.
the obstacle is.
Defining the obstacles
Defining the
almost,
obstacle.
which I think would make you dislike the obstacles less.
Yeah.
Like they could go from less than awesome to like,
Just be honest about
Awesome.
like what the obstacles are.
yeah.
I'm going
Grace?
to go one step further.
Okay, please.
What is your best life? What's your definition for
Whoa.
best life?
Define best life.
Mhm.
Okay.
Spend the time, plan it out.
See, that's really interesting. One of Sky and I's mottos is, and so together we build the life that we love. And we see we as Sky, me and God, and like this kind of like journey of like the universe together with us rather than us like on our own accord. And so like I love the like, what is your best life? And then maybe to that too, kind of what you were saying also, Scott, like how do you build the life that you love? And why build a life that you love? Like why does that even matter? Okay, we have 3 beautiful questions. That's the most we've ever had in one episode.
Yeah, this is great.
Awesome.
Love it.
Boom.
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 Thank you for listening. Join Brad and Scott next time on the Curiosity Podcast.